Hi, I'm Dave and welcome back to Littleton Model Railway. So recently I made one of these little Kitmaster Dapol Pugs. They're about £8 or £10, not too much, and it was quite fun to make. But I bought a research book, and in that I saw a picture that has inspired me, and I've bought another one. Let's see what I'm going to do. So doing my research for my railway, because it's based around the LMS lines, around Bristol and to a lesser extent some of the Great Western and Southern Railways lines. I've got this book, The Railways of Bristol and Somerset by Martin Smith, and when you open it up to page 92-93, there's photographs of these saddle tanks and other small industrial or private locomotives that were used in the area, and in particular the one that caught my interest was this. So it's captioned 101 uses for a dead saddle tank, and here this one, Medway, was turned into a mobile water tank, and that's what I'm going to attempt to make from this. Now this has all the ingredients to go wrong because I don't do kit bashing. This is going to be my first attempt at modifying a kit, and this doesn't lend itself to being that because the saddle tank is actually made of two parts with the boiler integrated into them. So that's going to be interesting. Hopefully it will look okay when it's made, but I'm going to give it a go, and you'll see the results soon. I've separated the kit out. These are the parts that I need, and then this is the waste. So the coupling rods, the cab, the front of the smoke box, all of that I won't need. And then from here, parts that I will need to modify. So the wheels will be fine, the base plate will be fine. Parts I need to cut up will be this, because I will need to remove part of the bottom here, so that the saddle tank rests on the chassis. I don't know what I'm going to do about the suspension springs though. I imagine that if this was resting down, those would be covered. So I will try and remove those and see if there's some way of integrating them into the model. If not, I'll do it without. If you look at the photograph of Medway, you can see the springs are there just underneath, and there are some sleepers lifting the saddle tank up above the springs to not interfere with their operation. So I may do that. It's going to depend on how good my cutting skills are. Yep, and then the back of the cab here needs to be removed from the buffer beam. So at the front, the buffer beam's separate, so that's fine. The back, the buffer beam's part of the cab, so I'll have to cut that off. Also, fiddly bit, I'll need to remove the smoke box door from this, so that I just have the semicircle for the front of the tank. Right, so this won't look a lot different yet, but so far I've removed the back of the cab from the buffers. Having done so, managed to preserve two of the lamp irons. The third snapped off, but I've got it there and I'll be able to glue that on pretty easily. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to assemble the base, and I will set this and this to one side for now and deal with you later. And I will prepare the bottom of the locomotive. And I'll just add that to do this, I will use liquid poly and a brush, a very thin brush. I've found this much easier to do with these than the normal poly cement that you would get in the Airfix kits. I think that is a bane on the modelling society, is when we get Airfix kits when we're younger, it puts us in the sort of like mindset that we need to get poly cement to make models. Liquid poly is much better and much less messy. Okay, so there it is, all glued together, and something I forgot to mention is the cylinders on this are two parts. One side is where are they? One side is those pieces, and then the other side are these pieces, which are actually here. So I've cut that off, and that leaves a little square hole because it's an injection molded part. And what's quite good is where this has happened with this one, you can see it's kind of left a square hole there as well. So that's quite good, a nice little extra bit of realism. Most of the way there with the saddle tank now. So as you can see, the front has gone, that was snipped off, and then the rest was cut off with the razor saw. And then the razor saw was used to remove the funnel as well, and then that was sanded down. And once the base is removed, I'll be able to get the round file through there to sort of make that a proper circle. The back was attached, the firebox, the head was again cut off with the razor saw, leaving just the flat plate with the windows. That was then glued on, and then the windows were butchered off. It's just gluing, and then once the glue is set, I will file down around the edges here to give that a nice smooth finish, and then I'll take the razor saw to the bottom, and what I'm planning on doing is cutting in this groove here, and then that will allow me to attach the springs. I'll remove this back part, and that will allow me to retain this piece with the springs on, fix those to the base, and then I will feed some sleepers through from some scrap track that I have to rest underneath the saddle tank, and then the saddle tank will sit a little bit lower down. I think maybe a little bit higher, depends how thick the sleepers are. But the saddle tank will then rest on the sleepers and over these springs, so these springs will probably be a little bit less visible. Okay, so this is filed and shaped, and I've managed to remove the springs and apply them. So the springs have actually swapped around. Normally the half springs would be here because they would run into the cab, but there's no cab here, so I want them to be visible from the side, and these run behind these boxes. The sleepers in any combination on their side, stacked or single, don't match the height of the box, so I cannot have. So my original plan was to have this resting on the boxes. I don't want to remove those because then this will basically be one massive hole on the front, and that will look a bit pants. And also, now I've glued it on, the lamp irons are in the way and would prevent me from cutting that off anyway. But it's no big deal. So what I'm going to do is this will go here, rest on 3 sleepers here, and then to cover up the fact that there's no springs here, I'll just put 2 sleepers across the top, so it's going to look something a bit like this. So 2 sleepers. Oh, they're so fiddly. Right, 1 there. Oh, this is really tricky whilst holding the camera. Screw it, I'll just do it and then you'll see it in a bit. So there it is, the glue's just drying. Yeah, that's I'm pretty happy with how that's come out. As you can see, those sleepers, or rather can't see, those sleepers cover where the springs end. The springs can still be seen under the chassis there, but they cover up the fact that they don't go beyond there. Let's see the back. I don't know how I'll tidy that up. Bit rough there, but that's the only bit that I feel like I've really messed up. Everything else seems to have come together quite well. So there we go. I now have what was the word? A mobile water tank. I now have a mobile water tank for use on my railway, perhaps, or maybe in a diorama. But yeah, I think that's quite a different. That's my first attempt at kit bashing, at producing something that doesn't exist. I wonder if anybody else has made a model like that. I don't know. But I'll get the probably go to bed now. But I'll get the old airbrush out, spray that over, spray it black, and then perhaps just add a little bit of weathering. I don't know, might spray it a different colour other than black. The black and white photo seems to indicate that that engine was a lighter colour, perhaps green or blue. So maybe spray that, maybe add a bit of colour to it rather than sticking with black. Yeah, and then we'll see how it looks in later. And here it is, it's finished. So I asked my wife and my youngest son, what colour should I paint it? And I said light green or light blue, and they said light blue. So it's quite a crude weathering job, but I think from a distance it looks okay. Certainly looks rusty. I managed to paint the sleepers brown to make them look a little bit better. As picked out the lamp irons in black. This was so let's start from scratch. So first I air sprayed it, used an airbrush, gave it a coat of primer. Then this is a sky blue, something like that, by Vallejo. Thinned that out 50-50, gave it an all over sort of coat with the blue, both under the frames as well. Once that was done, I masked off the ends so that I could spray the buffer beams red, using Signal Red from Hornby. I think that's quite a good red for using the buffer beams. And then once those were done, the rest was done by hand, so which is why it's not so tidy. So slightly watered down paint I've got used there: orange, burnt sienna, brown and black. So black was pretty much used to pick out the buffers, the hook, the lamp irons, the handle, and then the handrails as well. The brown was used on the sleepers, thinned down so it was more like a wash. Orange was put on a few parts underneath, because if you add a bit of orange and then go over it with the brown, it gives it a kind of like a rusty effect, so I did that on the brakes. And then the rest is the mixture of the brown and the burnt sienna, dappled all over, a little bit of black mixed in to just sort of like give it that rusty appearance. So I was going to go for faded look on it, but realised I didn't have any white to mix in with the sky blue to make the lighter shade of blue where it's been bleached by the sun. So I started weathering it to make it look rusty and dirty, and then found the white. So maybe another day I'll give some fading a go in my weathering technique. But there it is, it's all done. I'll just do another slow turnaround. So not the world's best job, but it's again, this is my only fourth kit. Still practicing, and I'm certainly not going to weather any real locomotives at this rate, but I think it looks very nice on this little shelf with these collections of old and abandoned parts. So I think it looks good there on that. Yeah, so yeah, I'll just keep it there for the time being. It goes nicely together. Right, okay, thank you for watching. Hope you found that useful, enjoyable, or whatever. Hopefully maybe I've inspired you to look for some photos of trains in rather strange situations and model those yourselves. I've got to say, it was although it was a bit tricky, it was easier than I thought. And probably if I was going to recommend anything, I would say get a razor saw. Razor saw is very, very useful for chopping this thing up. So definitely try out one of those. Get one of these £10 kits. They're nice and cheap, and then you can hack away. Certainly don't be doing it with a with a proper model. Alright, thank you for watching. Bye bye.